Hi. So, did you make your list? Did you finish your list? Is your list ever growing? Oh, that list of discomforts, all the things that could possibly make us uncomfortable. In the last video, when I asked you to make a list, what I didn't mention out of all the discomforts were the one that just about everybody seems to have, which is discomfort with death. Hmm. I don't know if we will go into that fully right now because that's a pretty big one. But on the other hand, if you get through that one, everything else becomes a lot easier because a lot of the discomforts really in the end have to do with not wanting something to die off. Relationships, jobs, ways of being, friendships, old stories, old habits. We kind of like those things because they're comfortable. We wear them like a habit. And when I say habit, I mean like a nun's habit that define and delineate us with something. So we hold on to them. So maybe we will. It wasn't where I was going, but let's talk about discomfort of death. And then we'll look at other parts of your list. But death is that unfortunate thing we've been taught to fear, to hate, to not want to see, pretend doesn't exist, hide from it. And yet, as I'm sure you've heard before many times in many ways, it is the one constant of life. It is the one thing that makes us all equal. It is one thing that always exists, despite billionaires trying to increase our longevity and live forever. It's not what nature intended. It's not what nature wants for us. What nature wants for us is to live, and we cannot live if we do not face the idea of death. If we're not able to let things release, to have their time and be gone. We are nature. Remember this, everything based in nature. So look around. What in nature is trying not to die? Nothing. What nature is pretending that it doesn't die? Nothing that I've ever seen. Things do their best to stay alive for their given time. I mean, it behooves us to live our best life, to stay here, to live this experience. But when the time has come, when the time for an idea, for a thought, for a piece of art, for a tree, for a rock, for a breath is done, imagine the peace we would have if we allowed for those moments. If we just said, right, it is time. It is time to leave this place. It is time to let go of that person. It is time to let that idea, that story disappear so that you can move forward with space for something new. It's time for the body to let go. Remember when one of my grandmothers died, I talked to her from work that night, and she was in her home. Luckily, she did manage to live that life where she wasn't really well, but she was well enough to finish off her time in her own home. And when we talked, I asked her how she was doing. And she said, I am just so tired. I just want to go to sleep. And she didn't mean to have a nap. I knew she meant sleep, the eternal sleep. And so I had to take a breath and say, well, you're allowed. You are absolutely allowed. If you are done, go to sleep. We love you. And she did. That was the beautiful thing. She went to sleep with the freedom to know that she'd had her time. And in that, she was able to let go and peacefully drop off into this other space, giving herself that passage of birth into the next realm, the next way of being. And I just wish we weren't all waiting for the permission to do that. Not necessarily to leave this world. That's the big example. But with everything, it's like we're waiting for permission from somebody else to say that we are allowed to be who we were meant to be. That we are allowed to show up and be everything. That we're allowed to say no to the things that don't serve us and yes to the things that do. So, in holding on to a discomfort of the death of things, what have you been saying no to that you want to scream yes to? What part of you? I think rather than just doing work on something off your list, I think now this is the most important thing on your list of all the discomforts, this discomfort, this fear of the death of things. How deeply can you look at it? Can you be with that and truly look, and without closing off the feelings that come with it, consider the one thing right now in this moment that you have been so worried about letting go of, have surrounded yourself in so much discomfort at the thought of being who you need to be that you've been holding back, holding off. I challenge you. I'm not saying it's easy. It is not. Telling my grandmother to go to sleep and never wake up again was not easy. But it's needed, it's necessary. The worst thing I could have done was told her, you can't leave us and you need to be here, because she wouldn't have been able to do in that moment what she needed to do for her. The most uncomfortable things I do are the things that challenge me the largest, the ones that ask me to step up into my life, to show up no matter how scary it is. So, again, what's one thing off of maybe that list that you've already created, or something that is now coming to mind because you're really emotionally investing yourself in this? What is something that has been so uncomfortable for you? You've been putting your head down and hoping it would just disappear. If you just let it disappear, what would never change that needs to change? Maybe you'll be perfectly content, perfectly safe. You'll go along, glide through your life, and that's fine if that's what you need to do in this lifetime. But if me simply saying that sets something in your gut, a whirl, and it's going, no, God, no, I can't do that. I can't stay there. Then what is it? What is it? And what in this moment do you need to do? What is the first thing? I would suggest the first thing is just to face it, to look at it, to be with it. Don't try and rip yourself apart because you now notice it. Maybe you do, but I would say look at it, take a breath, and consider how you would feel on the other side if you were to get through the discomfort of this and actually do it. Like I said, it wasn't where I was going to go, but I think it was the necessary place to go. It's going to get juicy because I'm going to do the work too. There's always something. But at least I think I'm pretty good with the death of things. So it's just figuring out what's still hanging on that I hadn't noticed that needs to drop away like a dead leaf. Good luck with this one. Drop me a note if you need a little help with it. Sometimes we just need someone to say, "You've got this." Okay. Bye for now.